panel, well, as I said, data security critical to the future of CX. What is the role of data security in the customer experience, innovations in customer identity and access management? Are CX teams cyber aware? And what is the impact of data regulations on CX? Well, our panelists are, first up, Saumil Mehta, Director and Country Manager, the Kraft Heinz company. Saumil has 17 years of experience working with the most iconic global and Indian brands, organizations like PepsiCo, Samsung, Pedialyte, and Crompton Greaves, which has led him to his current assignments at the Kraft Heinz company. Thank you so much, Saumil, for giving us your valuable time. Then we have Sharatee Ghosh, Senior Executive Vice President, Customer Experience Center and Virtual Relationship, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Well, Ms. Ghosh heads the Omni-Channel Customer Experience Center and Virtual Relationship Management platform for the mass affluent segment at the Kotak Mahindra Bank. She's somebody who's responsible for the customer experience provided by the bank across channels such as phone banking, email, and social media. Thank you so much, Ms. Ghosh, for joining us and giving us your valuable time. Well, we also have Dharmarajan K, Chief Product and Customer Experience Officer, TATA cLiq. Dharmarajan has around 20 years of experience as a product and customer experience leader, of which 9 years has been in the e-commerce space. In his previous role, Dharma was the Chief of Customer Experience and Service for TATA cLiq. Well, we also have Dhanraj Kamdar, the Vice President Customer Service, Mercedes-Benz, Central Star, Gujarat. Well, Dhanraj specializes in the customer service operations of the premium automotive brands like Toyota, Nexus, Audi, and Mercedes-Benz for 18 years in India and abroad. Currently, he's associated with Ghosh Motors India Private Limited as the Vice President. Also, we are joined by Harshit Desai, Head Customer Experience Alliances, Partnerships and Automation, Aditya Birla Finance Limited. Harshit, a digital and an experience evangelist and also a new age design thinker with various national and international awards for some path-breaking work in UX, digital products, design, and entrepreneurship. And ladies and gentlemen, this entire panel discussions will be moderated by Boby Mohan, CIO, TVS Supply Chain. Well, Boby, being a technologist with a quarter-of-century experience in IT, software, analytics, and digital. He's somebody who's developed successful products, bootstrapped and scaled. His analytics startups led to a successful exit before working with large organizations on their digital transformation endeavors. Well, he's somebody who's got a liking for good food, good music, and family. And well, we sure do have a great liking for you being a moderator, Boby, all the time. Thank you so much, firstly, for agreeing to be a part of the World CX Summit. And then again, moderating it is a valuable feeling for us. So thank you once again to all our eminent panelists for joining us. Over to you, Boby, to take it forth. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhavna. I hope I'm audible. Please confirm. All right,
yes.
Lovely. And at the outset, very good afternoon to everybody out there listening. And I hope that we will have the next 35 to 40 minutes of extremely interesting points of view coming across, and then all of us putting in what we think would be the way forward for CX. And with me, I have a set of extremely capable, accomplished people, starting with Sharatee, Ghosh, Saumil, Harshit, Dhanraj. I don't see Dharma yet, but I hope we'll have them around. So we, I think, bring to the table a wealth of experience across multiple products, services, and the kind of sectors that we work with. So with that as a background, I think what I would want to do at this juncture is probably try to set a bit of a context and bring in a bit of personal experience to this the entire discussion. So I take you back to the days when we were locked down during COVID, and we were pretty much at the mercy of the friends delivering food, right? We had a lot of these people coming in, and that was the only way you could have something different when you're stuck at home. So my son decided to order pizza one day, and then we of course went to one of those the large companies who did such a wonderful job getting us what we need, and we ordered pizza, and the pizza got delayed, and then the pizza got delayed, and then the pizza got delayed, right? And so we were on phone trying to figure out what was happening, and the calls kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And at some point in time, the delivery person switched off the phone and refused to to deliver the pizza for some reason. He just dropped off the radar. Yeah? And then we tried to get him back in touch with the company website through their customer care portal or whatever the chat application is. And it took me about 5 minutes and some 50 messages, a few angry ones at that, to tell them that I didn't eat my pizza and was asking for a refund, right? It took a lot of time to convince them that, well, the delivery person just didn't turn up. And then, of course, the refund happened and so on. But at the end of which, it left me with such a lot of negative feelings about that entire experience of me trying to be a customer and then probably getting shortchanged. And then I will cut to another incident that I read about a few weeks ago, which happened in London. So there was this lady who had ordered for food on a Saturday night. Probably she worked late and she wanted to get something. And it was about 2 or 3 in the morning when the delivery person came in with food. And I read that the person was hungry. And so he decided to eat whatever was supposed to be delivered for the lady. The only thing he did was he informed the lady that, listen, I'm eating your food because I'm hungry. And, you may please do what you want. And the best part of the story is that this lady called up the agency that was working with them or the company that was serving her food, didn't raise a request for a refund, left 5 stars for this person, left a comment saying that if someone's hungry at night, I'm very happy to be feeding that person. And I'm feeling reasonably satisfied with this entire endeavor. And to be honest, she went hungry. Huh? But the best thing about it is, at the end of this entire endeavor, the person who ordered the food and paid for the food went away feeling so happy about this entire experience. So to me, I guess this is all that we're trying to do here in terms of customer experience, right? How do we put forth an experience with which our customers, our clients get positive vibes by the time they're done with an interaction with us? How do we deal with them with a lot of respect? Be humane in this post-digital world. How do we put forth the humane front of us as an organization? And I guess, ladies and gentlemen out there, and this wonderful panel that I'm working with today, what we would hope to do is to demystify that entire process at one level, and also try to bring in some aspects with which we try to keep it all safe, because of course data in the wrong hands is worse than probably you being in the wrong hands. They could do a lot more damage with that kind of data. So that's pretty much the context, folks, we would want to start off with. And let me, without much ado, jump to Saumil, right? Saumil, well, we speak about CX, right? A few years ago, we spoke about DX, digital transformation. So there's a new paradigm of this whole concept of design thinking, application development. What do you think this is, and where is this going?
Thank you, Bobby, for that wonderful question. Good afternoon to all my fellow panelists, the host, and the audience there. To be honest, I mean, this is my personal experience about CX as a concept, and according to me, it's not a new paradigm or a new concept at all. I think it's an age-old practice deployed by every business entity to enhance, loyalty for the brand or the service that they are offering. I mean, just to give you, 2 short examples. Long before e-commerce came into our lives, we have always had a neighborhood grocery store doing home delivery for us. Long before even credit card, same store would extend a full month credit where you'll do the purchase through the month and settled the entire payment in the first week of next month when you have received your salary. This is done since ages. Now, why was this done by the grocery store? Because this has been their understanding of delivering a superior CX and achieve customer loyalty. And all of this was done without any formal design thinking or even any application deployment also at that point in time. So in a way, CX, according to me, is any effort to enhance CX is an antidote to the adage that says that, the cost of acquiring a new customer is far more than retaining an existing one. So that's where I, personally feel that's what CX has been all about since ages. However, there are certain new dimensions and paradigms that CX itself is exploring within its own gambit, and it is obviously, aided by DX, as you say, the digital, experience or the digital technology that that has been there around since quite some time now, and that is now aiding some of the new, that is aiding now CX in exploring these new dimensions and paradigms within its own gambit. CX is now trying to encompass entire consumer or customer life cycle. It is also trying to map the brand journey vis-a-vis the consumer's life journey. And by doing so, this is where it is, I'm saying it's taking its trajectory. That's where the path is going. And by doing so, it is exploring each such time for pitching the brand or the product or solution offerings when they map the brand journey and the customer journey. Now, all of this is getting encompassed in design thinking and even application development as well as deployment, which helps capture the data seamlessly, and with the help of, say, something like an AI or an ML, it can also throw meaningful and actionable opinions and, line items or tasks for every manager to, take up and execute. My only grouse in this entire trajectory of CX currently is that, and this is specifically on, application development and deployment. Currently, most of the organizations are digitizing the processes that has been there with the organizations in ages. The key is to think of enhancing tangible output, experience, convenience, whatever is a preset as a parameter, and define a parameter, define numbers, define benchmarks. Then you embark on this entire application deployment or the digitization journey or the DX journey to enhance CX. And once that is done, measure the tangible increment that has been actually achieved on whether it is output or experience or convenience to the consumer. Now, if those numbers have enhanced in real time, in real sense, then probably you've set yourself on course to be actually a leader in delivering CX, or I would not say deliver CX, but in terms of enhancing CX, through your entire life cycle as an organization. According to me, to summarize, CX as a journey, it's like what I would quote our Honorable Transport Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari ji, when in one of the interviews he said that "Achhe din nahi aayenge," and he said this, and he defined it as that what is if I am staying in a 1-bedroom flat today, I would love to go into a 2-bedroom flat tomorrow. That's my definition of achhe din. But when I go to a 2-bedroom flat, I would love to have a bigger car or maybe a 3-bedroom flat. So the consumer experience, so CX will keep redefining its benchmark as well. So the CX journey has to be a continuous one. The evolution has to be a continuous one, and one can't, sit back on the laurels that one would have achieved at one level of the journey. So that's my take. That's how the CX is evolving in terms of what is the current state and what is my expectation of how it should evolve in future as well.
Thanks, Saumil. It was wonderful to see you start with Gandhiji and his concept of how the customer is the reason why we exist, and bring us all the way down to Mr. Nitin Gadkari and saying that achhe din nahi aayenge. Amazing stuff. And yes, the DX leading into CX makes absolute sense, and of course the whole tangible aspect of numbers. Interesting point. We'll come back to this, but then I guess with the whole discussion around numbers and the output and the fact that we have to make it tangible, right, takes us to the whole discussion on how are we deriving this business value out of this entire endeavor of CX, right, which is a good segue. Now, given that Dharma is not with us, I would probably throw it open to the group and say anyone can raise their hands and take this question up. We could have a quick chat on how would CX essentially translate to business value? Where would you see that coming? Extending on Saumil's point of numbers and matrices. Takers? Okay, Sharatee, over to you, ma'am.
So, one of the ways in which we make CX tangible is having measurements in place. So, for example, you want to, customer journeys is what we look at. And if you can have the measurement in form of a CSAT, an NPS, or something a little more tangible for CX, which we call the customer effort score. How much effort did the customer have to expend in completing that transaction? Now, when a bank, and I speak for any organization here, they can have measures of the journeys and the efforts a customer, and also after the customer journeys, the employee effort scores to complete that transaction, because both sides are equally important. Then you know that when you changed the process design and the customer effort score came down, that means you moved the needle, and that could be tangible. Then look at the employee effort score, because it is only happy employees and employees with low effort who can actually put in the empathy required that to complete a transaction. Bobby, your example of the London delivery man and lady actually just shows the empathy the customer felt while undertaking the transaction. And somewhere I think we look at a lot of intelligence when we design our systems, DX. I think somewhere empathy and the emotional quotient, EQ, is equally important when we design these systems.
Thank you, Sharatee. First thing, thanks for taking it unannounced. And two, for the very pertinent point you made on empathy versus intelligence. So just trying to bring some context again. I used to work for an organization which started designing its processes for the post-digital world 2 years ago. And the whole thinking was about how do you take the human forward in this digital world and bring the human context out. So I think the whole the effort scores, how do you measure them, all along underlying or probably layered with the whole empathy piece. Amazing stuff. Now that we've spoken about the nice fuzzy bits of empathy and all that, let's probably try to also break this apart and split hairs on what are the pitfalls, right? How does data security come in? Because we're looking at DX, we're looking at people working with your multiple digital channels, and how would data security weave into this entire process? Sharatee and maybe Saumil, if you want to add, lovely.
So the way I look at it, Bobby, the two pillars of convenience and safety are the drivers of any enhanced customer experience. That's what Saumil also said, right? But while consumers crave the ability to be liberated from the security risks associated with transactions, payments, they want a speedy checkout process, they still expect, 100% they expect the process to be secure. If you look at the whole DX, CX talk, realistically, no customer wakes up in the morning desperate to make a payment or a transaction. But all of us, we do wake up wanting a new gadget, maybe the latest book, or to refill the fridge with groceries. So I feel the ideal process for a customer is invisible, has to first give peace of mind without any obvious interaction with an application. So data security, if you see the way we currently are using it and deploying it in India, is mostly in the form of two-factor authentication. The OTPs that we get after we log in, that's added comfort. So for example, a jewelry transaction done on a new credit card or a casino swipe done on a credit card, these are, if they are non-characteristic of a customer spends, they might have added validations. As long as the TAT and it's seamless is how you define the customer journey, then I think it adds to the safety without taking away from the convenience. And that's how I think CX and data security completely coexist. One cannot live without the other. That's my thought.
Amazing. Saumil, you want to add something to this entire concept of how do you bring in security here?
I largely second to what Sharatee said. And this is largely from an Indian customer point of view. As a country and as generation, as the way we have evolved as a society as well, we have been a society who has faced and our tryst with happiness starts with even basic convenience. Even if convenience in life, okay, even if I am reaching my office instead of 45 minutes by 35 minutes. So even if 10 minutes there is saved, if there is less traffic on the road, it makes me happy. It reduces my stress level. So as a society, we are a convenience-seeking society, and even if CX delivers convenience, I think the consumer will be really happy. At least for the next couple of decades, also the convenience is going to be the factor. Having said that, actually it walks straight into the, but that's what straight walks away into diametrically opposite way of safety and security, because the more you need or seek convenience as a consumer or a customer, the more you will yourself as a consumer customer be vulnerable to all those safety breaches and all the vices that comes along with it. It's a simple thing. Like earlier, if I go and buy something from the market and come home, it's really be a safer transaction. But today, if I'm allowing somebody all the way to my doorstep, okay, and we know there are crimes and things happening around that. Recently, there was this crime that happened in Ahmedabad city a week back where an old age couple got killed, murdered in their house. And the information was passed by a painter who was doing a painting. So they knew somehow what to know that, so some of these stuff. So the more we get people, so I'm saying this is a diametrically opposite thing. You will need a lot of, I would say it's a very, it's a balancing act that is required in consumers' expectation for convenience, comfort, and versus their own ability to get safe and secure transactions. I like the example of what Sharatee said, that maybe a layer of authentication on, unsolicited, I would not say, but out of the way spend, something which is not a normal. But then again, the point is that doesn't that increase a bit of inconvenience, because the moment I'm not swiping at a casino, but once in a blue moon, if I'm swiping and I have to do one more layer of authentication, or if I get a pesky call while I'm on my, roulette counter, juggling with numbers, and if I get a pesky call, sir, did you spend this 100,000 rupees on your credit card right now at so-and-so casino? And I'm in a good mood and I'm suddenly getting, so look at this way now, it's not completely diametrically opposite direction. Somewhere, so CX as a process through DX, can we also educate consumers and customers that if you are expecting this layer of safety and security, there will be a bit of compromise in convenience and comfort, because we are doing it for your own goods. That brands have to also lead this education for the consumers.
Thanks, Saumil. Thanks, Sharatee. So we said, we Indians love convenience first, and then we get into the nuts and bolts of things like that. And so the whole, how do you make the whole process a lot convenient, but at the same time safe? It's a good challenge. But at this juncture, I think it's appropriate that we quote Tennyson and probably M in James Bond when they said that, you don't see your enemies, they're in the shadows now, right? And if you don't see your enemies and they're in the shadows, now the task at hand is how do you protect your key assets? Those are digital today. And of course, while we speak about security and ensuring that convenience goes online, there is the real part in life about regulations, and specifically regulations around data. And that's something which is coming at us. I'm going to just flip this around and come to you, Harshit, and probably ask you, do you have regulations around, and you have CX and the whole concept of it being convenient, at the same time fast, and so on. So how do you bring this conundrum together? What are the pieces, and how do you want to do this?
Thanks, Bobby. And I think, as soon as the regulation bit comes in, I think quite a lot of these moving pieces get aligned and fall in place, right? I mean, we may be aspiring for the best CX possible. The customer may be willing to share all the data. But as soon as the regulation comes in, there is a little bit of method to the whole madness, and the madness could be on either sides as we see it, right? Madness on the customer experience can be absolutely wowing the customer, or the CX going absolutely down to the pits in terms of customer not being serviced at all. So in this, as soon as regulation steps in, I see there is quite a lot of 50-50 which will happen, and people will tend to kind of jump over the fence and sit on one side, and that I think is required. The second thing, the regulation, and if you look at the PDPB bill, which is the Privacy and Data Protection Bill, you will understand that it has given quite a lot of teeth to law, right, from that standpoint. So, I mean, you will see organizations being filed up to 2 crores or 2% of their worldwide revenues to 15 crores and 4% of that worldwide turnover, right? So they're actually making you put money where your mouth is in terms of where you are going to service the customer, where you are charging the customer. Make sure you don't hamper their experience. And that's the reason why any data which is related to the customer is given that level of sanctity and respect, if I may say so in law, in layman's term, that it requires, because you are dealing with sensitive customer data. And in fact, to that extent, they have gone ahead and classified different data points, which essentially will classify as sensitive data or general data about the customer. So I think from that standpoint, the regulation has done a fair bit of job of ring fencing all what was ambiguous. If I look at the two other aspects, which are the other stakeholders as part of the whole policy thing, right? The main consumers, how do they benefit? I mean, now there are laws and the consumer will get a right, which is called right of erasure. So I can reach out to an organization and say, hey, you know what? I know you have my data. I request you to please wipe all of that out. And that gives enormous power back to the consumer, saying, hey, while I know some of this data was important for you to service me, I know it is about time. I either am looking to change my loyalties to going to a different product or a service, or I think that all data which I gave you as part of my validation is no longer required, and I request you to please erase all of that. So it has given that level of right to the consumer. Again, from parents and all of that, you will have additional rights from parental control standpoints of what data of your kids is going, medical data, sensitive data around sexual orientations and other things. All of that is now getting classified as sensitive data, and people will have absolute control over what can be done. The third entity which I see emerging is the whole auditors bit, right? I mean, you had these auditors, you were doing it as part of your health and hygiene from an IT standpoint. Now there is a totally different view to it in terms of like you would have a food license being given before the food gets delivered, and it is super sensitive because consumer is going to consume it and it may go wrong on his part. Exactly similar thing has been done for data standpoint. So if you are an organization sitting on stale data, like food organizations use ingredients which are stale, you can be fined for that as well, right? So from that standpoint, you cannot be playing hanky-panky with old data or be even taking it very lightly, saying that, hey, you know what, this data is not useful, let it be lying around. You will have to process it right, and you will have to get it audited also from that standpoint. So the audit layer coming in will actually enforce that all of this gets implemented. And all in all, if I were to look at the whole thing, I think the main thing is I see some of these intermediate data processing entities or judiciaries which will come up, which will take the onus of taking data from organizations, processing it, making sure that it has the right expiry, erasing it, and making sure that the data has relevance, right? So from that standpoint, I see another middle layer of orgs coming in, which will actually know how to deal with your data, rather than majority of us as in large organizations who have been sitting on large pool of data and not knowing what to do of it, right? So that's how I see impact across a few of these stakeholders. And I think it is a step in a meaningful direction, right? I mean, it helps all the stakeholders. It also helps organization to relook at their data strategy, saying, am I talking to the customer with the right age reference, with the right gender reference and all of that? Because there are so many things where multiple scenarios you are capturing data from the same single customer, and it keeps on overlapping, and within your databases you don't know what the actual gender of the customer is at times, right? So from some of those standpoints, I think this is a move in the right direction. And at least some of us organizations which are in the benign BFSI space, we have been doing very, very good upkeep of our data, because it is super crucial for us, even from a regulatory standpoint, always across all these years. I think other organizations will kind of come to par with it, and the consumers will get a very, very strong right to the whole thing. That's how I look at it.
Hey, thanks, Harshit. In a way, it kind of tells me that what we just spoke about is how you want to take the whole wild west of data and consumer expertise and try to bring in the right regulations and put in the controls so that it's a much more refined city, so to say, where you have rules, regulations, people coming in. Interesting point of view. I like the whole concept of right of erasure. Well, I'm not really sure how much of that would apply to the large social media giants of this world, but as a concept, I think the customer having a right of erasure essentially means that, while the organization claims to have a racing car, you are telling them to wear the seat belts and to keep everything under control. And that, I guess, is a nice segue to come to you, Dhanraj. And the fact that, you know, you deal with high net worth individuals buying high net worth assets and so on and so forth. How do you think the whole the innovations around identity access management is helping the process, or has become an impediment in the entire process? How does it work together with the in general and probably in context to the auto industry as you may see it?
Well, till now we were all talking about the customer experience. I'd like to little bit go ahead and rephrase this. Why do we call them customers? Why don't we try to convert them as the fans of our product, our brand, and our services? Because what separates customers from fans? Customers have to be attracted, whereas fans will always be there. Customers give their money, fans give their heart. Customers complain, fans forgive. Customers vary, but fans stay forever. Customers are satisfied, but the fans are passionate. They hear the word and leave the message. They follow you and push you forward. So fans cannot be bought. Fans need to be conquered with performance, passion, and heart. Well, you cannot discover new oceans unless and until you have courage to lose the sight of the shore. And here comes the right role of customer identity and access management. A very strong and robust customer identity and access management will not only help business to exceed the expectations of customers, but also give them wow effect. I personally believe that customer identity and access management can further go ahead, can be further advanced with three major pillars. First is engagement of customers. Maintain a consistent brand presence with the customer with each and every transaction, each and every button he pushes. Make him realize that he's dealing with a prestigious brand and the service. Also give him out of the brand customized experience. Give him an opportunity to go and explore the security systems or the identity access management of other brands. Then only he'll realize what our brand or our product offers. Always speak the customer's language. I mean to say, make it user-friendly and customer-friendly. It should not be so complex that only an IT guy can understand it. And always build a customer profile so that he comes and asks you what kind of product or what kind of services I had taken from you before 6 months. Second important point comes the security. Security is very important. Right security at the right time for right purpose. For example, biometrics while you're recording times. Second important point is let customer decide his own security options. Whether he's comfortable with PIN, whether he's comfortable with OTP, whether with fingerprint, face access, whatever, let him decide. So that will build trust for the customer. Third thing, prompt customers. You see, nowadays we see every time we get prompted. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? That's where we can use artificial intelligence. We can prompt customer only when we find out that he's sharing some very sensitive, very private information, or either he's making some big financial transaction. So you should prompt customer only when it is required. And last but not the least, make recovery very easier. By any chance, if we lose password, we have to go through so many cycles. Make recovery of passwords very easier. Definitely the access should be given to him only, but it should be very user-friendly. Last area comes privacy. Privacy is 3P. Privacy management, preference management, and process of storage. I think with these three pillars, engagement, security, and privacy, customer identity access management will definitely expand to a new horizon. Though there are many cyber threats are over there, but it can be continued with these three pillars because it also engages customers, provides security and privacy also. Believe me, I just read in a Grand View Research market report that by 2025, customer identity and access management business will reach up to $20 $2.68 billion. And with the increased regulations by the government and the complying authority, definitely it will help customers to feel more secure and it will advance further. I think that is the best what I feel. I'll just conclude with a quote by Steve Jobs. Get so close to the customer that you tell them what they want before they themselves realize it. That is all from my side. We can go for further question and answers.
Hey, thank you very much, Dhanraj. Extremely interesting on how you want to create a fan out of customers, right? And what makes up a fan. I myself am a fan of the IPL team in Chennai, of course, and I know that a lot of what you say makes sense. You know, they lost last time. I forgiven them. I hope they'll win this time around. You see, but then we did go through a lot of these aspects, right? So starting with customer experience, the journey, the business value that comes out of it. How do you want to bring in data security, and in the end, creating an identities and maintaining the privacy and the whole concept of keeping it private at the same time making it convenient for people to work with. So our discussion essentially, if I were to quickly summarize before we went on to the next phase, spoke about three aspects. One, that it has to be convenient. It cannot be an effort from the side of the customer or the employee to keep the engagement going. Once you do that, how do you manage the process at the same time keeping it safe? The role of regulators that will bring about more and more as you would expect to go forth. And then, how would you use this entire process to keep the engagement going? Wonderful discussion, folks. And maybe with a lot of this information that we have captured from all of us, let's take a look at how these questions that we asked initially, and then maybe take a shot at how those things could be responded to. Bhavna, if you may just flash the answers and then we take them.
Just allow me a moment. I'll try and do a screen share once again. Just give me some time for that. Okay, I'm for some reason the screen share option is not showing for me right now. Just allow me a moment, Bobby. Give me a moment. I'll just get back to you on it.
No problems. So if you were to just read out even the answer, that would be fine. We did have a question which said, if someone came in with a lesser offering, would you switch loyalties? What did the audience say to that?
Okay, just a moment. I'll read out the answers in that case. First up, when it comes to our question, which is right here, the decision to initiate digital transformation, that was already done. Then their products value more than their experiences. Yes was 77%, Bobby. 8% was no, and 15% was sometimes. So that was in case of do the products value more than the experience. And when it comes to the would you change preferences if the better product service is introduced at list of price? We had 88% saying yes, and 3% saying no, and 9% saying maybe.
All right. So quickly summarizing, I guess a lot of us still look at price as a key reason why we stick on, but at the same time, we want the products to be much better. So Harshit, what do you make of these two numbers? Quickly, not a lot of time, but what do you make of these numbers?
I think we as humans continue to remain same irrespective of the progress in technology. And I think the more and more we get served, like you started off, right? Our expectation of the whole thing is going to keep on inching up. So I don't see any of these data points kind of too starking for us to kind of do course correction. I think our march towards enhancing the customer experience should be as fast-paced as it can be. But along with it, obviously be mindful of what we are using from customers' data and their preferences around it.
Lovely. Dhanraj, any thoughts?
I feel, yes, definitely we are going more and more into the kind of digital era. And this millennial generation is far more advanced than us. I personally feel that customer experience remains forever, whatever is the generation. And to give a better customer experience and wow factor, we should focus basically on the 5 human senses. The sense to hear, the sense to taste, the sense to smell, the sense to touch. I think these five senses, Panch Indriya that we call in Hindi, will remain the same. As long as we keep on touching on these five senses of human being, whatever is their age, it can be a small child or it can be 85-year-old gentleman also. The customer experience will always remain ever. That is what I.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. Sharatee, so how do you create cheaper products and services which keep wowing your customers? How does that make sense to you?
So, at every price point, there is a certain product that can come with an ensuing service. Now, if the customer is very keen on a discounted product, then the customer will also have to be okay with maybe truncated servicing hours at the contact center or seamless digital journeys. So, for example, the customer doesn't really get assisted service, but the digital journey is extremely seamless. I think as product developers and organizations, there is always a coexistence, and the customer, like we said, never stays static, right? The 1 BHK, 2 BHK, 3 BHK example. As a customer moves up in life, they realize the value of their time. And then, should they want to upgrade and ask for assisted service, which comes maybe at not that price point, those are all, you know, those are all checklists customers have, and they are perfect in choosing what is the level that they will pay for, or the money they will keep, or the amounts that they choose to spend, etc. So I think these are all seamless journeys in customers' minds. If they are okay with the brand, if they are fans of the brand, they will continue to patronize you if you haven't really messed up with hidden charges and lack of transparency.
Saumil, before we just conclude, last thought on how do you determine the right price point or the cost point for the experience that you're providing? In other words, how do you value the experience that is on the platter for the customer?
Okay, so this is always, in my personal experience, this is always quoted oft repeatedly, especially for Indian consumers and customers, that we are very price sensitive or we want things that are cheaper and all. I have a slightly, I would say, a diametrically opposite view to this. I don't think Indians, or for that matter, largely consumers, are price sensitive. Specifically to Indian and even South Asian context, I'll say that we are a value conscious consumer, or we are a society of value conscious people. We are super smart, I'll say, with a huge amount of responsibility, that we are a super smart set of people, that we can actually peg the additional value to a base product for any added comfort or convenience. So when it comes to pricing, we might think that, oh wow, we are doing a wow job of adding one layer of extra feature or convenience or safety or whatever. Do a survey, and many a times market research actually fails us. So when we come out with something which is really wow, and really, like for example, I'll give an example, that we come out with a commercial vehicle, a truck, a 20-25 ton truck, where the cabin for the driver is air conditioned. Okay, now if you ask the driver, who's the user, that would you like something like this, he'll say yes. Why not? Because it adds a huge amount of comfort and convenience for him. But if you, and then you say, oh wow, 95% drivers say they would love this. 5% did not understand the question. So you come back to the drawing board and make the product. Now, what is a truck without that air condition in the cabin? Say 10 lakh rupees. And you say, now this is a wow product, 95% buying intent. Let's price it at 15 lakh, 50% more, because it's a product, premium, blah, blah, blah. Then you go and then you realize suddenly that the decision maker is not the driver. The decision maker is the transport company owner. And he is not going to pay 50% additional to give comfort to his driver, because his customer for whom he is flying the goods are not going to pay 50% extra for that comfort or convenience. The point is how sensitive you are when you conduct your market research in asserting that additional amount that any consumer or customer is willing to pay for that added layer of comfort and convenience. In my personal experience, we have not reached there in terms of doing a scientific consumer customer research around that. But this is one thing which I personally practice and try to ring fence it before we take any such pricing decision. Coming to convenience and time, yes, no longer time is money. Time is even now more costlier or even more precious than money. So anything that can actually reduce any turnaround time or waiting time for the consumer or customer, somehow I feel that that one particular parameter can still command a differentiated premium. Again, needs to be really dovetailed scientifically with regards to consumer, customer, decision maker, that entire value chain, and how they respond to that added comfort, convenience, and added pricing both.
Thank you, folks. And well, at the end of it all, I think it's a very enlightening half an hour, 40 minutes that we spent talking about a lot of points. Thank you very much for the time spent. And in summary, before I hand it over to you, Bhavana, I think what we just said is even though customer remains king even today, we have a way of kings not being born, but we're creating kings. The whole creation of a customer who is king is what we're speaking about through the entire customer experience journey. And there are ways and means and methods by which it can happen. And I guess it's a new world, and we should welcome the new world and embrace it. Over to you, Bhavana. Thanks, folks.
Thank you so much, Bobby, firstly for a great moderation. As always, I'd really like to thank our eminent panelists. Throughout the entire panel discussion, I saw everyone very much gripped and all the answers very precise. Thank you for keeping it to the time, to the dot. So we really value you and your experience today. Thank you.